So a lot of people say, well, yes, the United States was not perfect, but it's better to have them on top and controlling everything than having an equal world where everyone's free to have a punch at one another and cause chaos.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
So when the United States had its unipolar moment, in 1989, 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed and America emerged as the most powerful country in the world, unilaterally. Like no one was on par with the United States. No one could compete. It was the world's most powerful country, right? So what does it do? It goes, right, well, now that we're the most powerful, we're responsible for every other country. We have a responsibility to make the world a better place, right? And I genuinely believe that there are some American thinkers who believed that. Condoleezza Rice, the most famous example, right? She was George Bush's Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, one of them. And they started going around the world, and you'll remember this. We were growing up during this time. They went around and started opening up liberal democracies, right? In countries that had barely knew what those were, right? But they at least what they said to the world, I don't whether they believe it or not, but what they said to the world is, well, we're trying to help these countries, right? But in trying to help, they ended up making a lot of these countries worse, right? And this goes back to the whole, right, even when you think you're doing good, you're not necessarily doing good. And from that geopolitical angle, some people say, well, maybe the United States should have tried to do less good and maybe just served its own nation. Because when you serve your own nation, I think you have a better idea of what works and what doesn't. Whereas,
this is the thing, right? It's whenever you try to do anything, you don't know the ripple effects.
Right.
So I'm not saying don't try. I'm just saying when you're trying to do stuff, you don't know if you're going to basically destroy an entire country, right? And this is a weird thing about the United States is in some way they are kind of evil, right? It's like what they've done around the world. They've said, no, you're going to be you don't have that choice, right? We're introducing choice to you, right? So do this. And it's no, you can't tell people how to live, right? And it's they've lived like that for China, right? China's this big scary communist country and things like that. Well, okay, right? But they're not doing anything to me, right? And maybe they're doing stuff to other countries, right? And maybe they're getting involved in stuff and you don't like that, but that's not your place to say anything, right? But
this is the thing. I mean, when so a lot of people say the primary responsibility of any country is to try and be as powerful a country as it can be, and you can only be as powerful a country as you can be by what's the word I'm looking for?
Keeping others down, basically.
Keeping others down, right? Otherwise, a lot of realistic international relations people say this. In the world, you either have hierarchy or anarchy. And no one wants anarchy, because in anarchy, right, people are more equal, but that gives them more of an impetus to fight one another, because everyone thinks they can get one up on the other. So for a lot of realist thinkers, they prefer it when the world is hierarchical. That's when you have order. Right. So a lot of people say, well, yes, the United States was not perfect, but it's better to have them on top and controlling everything than having an equal world where everyone's free to have a punch at one another and cause chaos.
In some way, I agree, right? But in other ways, I think there is sense to anarchy, right? There's by trying to control chaos, right? It's that whole thing, right? You're trying to prevent change,